Cooking's a funny thing. I find when you cook, you've got to use all your senses, right? That's why you don't want to be drunk when you're cooking, because you need all your senses. Obviously, smell, sight, taste, touch, but you use your hearing as well. And this will start to crackle and fizz. It's like boiling honey, and that's when you know you've got what in France they call a glace.
Okay.
So you can hear it. You're listening and waiting for it. Also, you don't need to move your pan around on the heat too much. Each time you move your pan, you lose temperature. Right. It's like doing a stir fry. If you've got a Chinese wok cooker, fine. If you're cooking on a stove, you want to leave things on the stove. So we're getting there now. Now it's getting a glaze. You can see it's getting syrupy. I'm going to add some Bordeaux red wine, about a glass of that.
So does any red wine work, or it has to be Bordeaux red wine?
The thing about Bordeaux wine is it's got a sweetness to it, a natural sweetness by the nature of the wine. And the way they make it. But what you can do is use any red wine and just put a little bit of sugar in there to sweeten the wine, and we let that bubble down. This is cooking off nicely. This is coming on now. So what you notice is I'm making all the sauces first.
Okay.
Then we can start actually making the dish, because until you've got your sauces, again, in a classic French kitchen, the kitchens are divided into sections and areas, and there's one job that's called a saucière. And that's all you do, all the time.
Wow.
And to train to be a good saucier takes 2 to 3 years.
Wow.
And then you'd move sections.
Wow.
And you learn at a lower level all the sections. So from the fish section, the meat section, the saucier, the pastry, you move all the way around at one level, then you go up a level, then you move around again. Wow. And that was the classic old system. And it kind of works. Yeah. Because you've got to know your stuff, you know. You can't walk into a management job and have winged it all the way through your career, because that's, at the end, is where you're going to get caught out.
Right.
Okay. And you wouldn't be invited to places like Lagos, for example, to do your cooking.
There you go.
So there we are. Right. So we're going to keep this coming down. This is on the go. Chef, can you put 2? That's a little bit hot, that one. We grab another bowl. We need to put 2 egg yolks into that bowl, please. I'm going to put a little bit more butter into there, because as you saw earlier, I had to steal some butter to go into here. So I'm going to add a little bit more. And what we're doing with that butter is we're actually splitting the fat from the curd. Okay? So we don't want to use the curd. We just want the fat of the butter to make this sauce.
So how do you split it? How do you
cook it gently on the heat, and the two will separate.
And then
you just want the fat.
Okay.
The rest you leave behind, or you can put it back in the fridge and make really nice pancakes just with curd and milk. It sweetens it, you know.
Nice.
So there we go. Our wine is coming down. I find when you're doing things like this, you're cooking at home, and a lot of you will find this, you're always tempted to rush. You're always tempted to do the next thing. Partly that's our lifestyle. We're always sort of with mobile phones, and everything's immediate, everything's really quick. Cooking is really the opposite all the time. It's slow and steady wins the race. It really is. Give yourself time to make beautiful things. You can't rush it, because you want, again, get this into a syrup. Then we made a stock yesterday. So you can hear it now. Can you hear that? Fizzing.
Yeah.
That's when you're there. That's the sugars now cooking. That's what makes a sweet sauce. We got about 1 kilo of beef bones.
Wow.
With the marrows. All the marrows in there. Thank you, chef. 1 kilo of beef bones with the marrow. Can I have another saucepan as well? Sorry, there's lots of saucepans going on here. Roasted them in the oven with all the trimmings of vegetables. Carrots, onions, celery, garlic, some fresh thyme.
Wow.
Roasted them in the oven at 200 degrees for about an hour.
Okay.
Put that into a big pot with tomato puree. Brought it to the boil and let that cook steadily for about 5 hours.
Wow, 5 hours.
5 hours. Strain it off, and then you've got a lovely natural gravy, and nothing tastes better than this.
Amazing.
In France, they call it a jus. J-U-S, not Jew as in Jewish.
Okay,
jus. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to fire this one up now. This is to make a thing called a gastric. There's lots of elements to this, I know. And at the end, all it is steak and sauce with vegetables, but...
It's amazing that you don't know how much goes into something. You see a sauce and you taste it, but you actually don't know there are layers and layers. So it's actually nice to see this process. And also, I never heard of a saucier before. So
Saucier.
yeah, so anybody
Quite
who's
sexy.
interested.
He's always revered in the French
Saucier,
kitchen. The saucier.
very nice.
So we've got a combination here. We've got some vinegar. Struggling to get into this. I'm not. Here you go. And some white wine, which I think this is white. I thought that was white wine, but quite nice wine actually. Yeah, lovely. Then we add some wine. I just had one rum punch. I asked for a fruit cocktail at the bar, and I haven't actually had any alcohol since I've been in Nigeria. I'm not quite sure why. I've just been into drinking fruit juice. And anyway, afterwards I was informed it had rum in it. Quite nice though. Nice. I'll have another one of those later. You know what it's like with booze, once you start. Okay, so we've got wine and vinegar. These two elements, we're going to reduce it right down so it becomes intensely strong. A pinch of salt at this point, just a pinch of salt in there. And we're just going to bring that right down. Oh, some shallots in there. And because I want to enhance the flavor of this, I'm going to put 1 stem of tarragon. This sauce now is bubbling away. I can afford to actually slow this right down on a really low heat. This is too high, so I'm going to bring this down.
Chef, if tarragon is not available, what other herb can supplement that?
Nothing. There is no other herb you can supplement for Béarnaise sauce. Béarnaise sauce has to have tarragon.
Okay.
But one might say, while you're there, can we strip the leaves off the tarragon of about 4 sticks and then chop them very finely? Yeah, lovely. You can get dried tarragon.
Okay.
And that's quite available all over the place. It's dry, and you just put a pinch of dried tarragon in. But what you get with tarragon is an aniseed flavor, anise.
Okay.
Maybe what you could do is, if you can you get star anise in Nigeria? Star anise. You could use a piece of star anise to get the aniseed flavor, and then you could use chopped parsley as a fib.
Okay.
Because as long as you've got the aniseed, and it's a funny thing, but this is it's called a gastric because it helps and aids digestion. French cooking is quite well thought out, right? This is fat. It's going to go with egg yolks, which is protein. This is a gastric. It cuts through it. So by combining that to digest, it makes it a lot easier. It's a bit like traditionally in the UK, we serve pork with applesauce because apples are acidic. They help you digest, or lamb with mint and vinegar and all those classic links. And the same in Nigerian cuisine, you know, using chili quite a lot. It helps.
Right.
It keeps things going, doesn't it? It keeps you healthy, chili, as well. It keeps you healthy, it does. So there we go. This is bubbling away. I was asked the question of all the places in the world, what's the most extraordinary place I've ever cooked? And I thought about it for a little bit, and I have to say it's Chengdu in China.
Wow.
And I said, most of the dishes that you eat look at you. In fact, virtually all of them. So toad soup, and they like the eyes and the heads and the tongues.
Okay, we like the head and the feet.
And the feet.
Yeah.
And
Not
the tails.
me personally, but people. Right.
Well, I think it's rightly so. You know, nothing should go to waste. So as we're reducing down our gastric, we've got our egg yolk there. We need a large whisk, guys. We've got a nice big balloon whisk. And we're going to push on. I've been told I'm allowed an hour up here.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just going to go steadily. And you're all right with me for an hour?
Of course.
Yeah, you're good. You're good. Okay, so we just bring this down. Got that on the go. Now, we start working, and we're going to make a hollandaise sauce. The thing you want to be careful with this is that you do not let this catch. You're not making scrambled eggs, okay? So we've got a basin of hot water. The first trick you do is you take, where have all my little spoons gone? Oh, there they are, hiding. I'm going to put them over here, Chef, thank you. So you just take two tablespoons of boiling water, maybe 3, just to help loosen them. You don't want this to curdle. Okay. And you bring it up, and we're going to whisk this until it's very, very pale and fluffy. So we can take this off the boil now, and just using the residual heat of the pan, I'm going to whisk this, and quite quickly. And this is, what we're doing is creating an element that creates our hollandaise, which this is called a sabayon.
Right.
Okay, a sabayon. When you whisk it, similar to zabaglione. I don't know if any of you have ever had zabaglione, Italian pudding, where they infuse egg yolks whipped with sugar until it's fluffy, and then they pour it over biscuits. Quite nice.
No, but it sounds
Zabaglione.
fantastic.
Very similar. And obviously there's quite a lot shared between Italian and French cookery. And you can see this is becoming, can you see it on the screen there? Inside the bowl, let me see if you, oh, there you are. There you are. There's a camera. Where is he? Up there. So you can see it's getting white and fluffy. And we're actually cooking the egg yolks, but keeping them kind of not curdling. So we're not making scrambled eggs. You've got to go like the clappers here. The thing is, when you're whisking, the movement is from the wrist. Because in a good kitchen, you do a lot of whisking, and you don't want to tire yourself out too much. So you just work it from the wrist. That's good. Okay. This is coming down. You can smell this in the air now. It's very strong. I'm going to add to this now. To this, I'm going to add
the tarragon.
The tarragon. And you've got to cook tarragon. You don't want to put it in raw. It's so astringent. It's so strong. So we're really getting a strong flavor of tarragon now. And then here's a trick of how you whisk something without the bowl flying around all over the table. Is you make a little horseshoe with a cloth, and it should stay put. Then I'm going to take my butter. I think I've got another tea towel somewhere, Chef, haven't I? I'll nick your one. Thank you. So we're going to pop that one over here. And this I'm going to bring this right down so it's really strong. So that's the wine, the vinegar, the tarragon.
Right.
If you sniff that in the morning, it'll wake you up. Like really powerful. It's a really powerful thing. Okay, so now we've got our boiled butter. Just turn the flames down a bit so we don't get too hot in here. I don't know over here, I'm sure the gas price has gone through the roof. I'm not sure. In the UK, at work, I've got a big 18 burner range, and I just, with the boys in the kitchen, I'm like, turn it off, whenever we're not using it, because it's gone really crazy now. So if I'm not using it, I'm going to turn it off. Okay, so we've got our boiled butter, and you see, this will not move now. It will just stay put, and just very slowly. You've got to do this slowly. You don't want this too hot. And you've got to go like the clappers, okay, on the whisk. Thank you, Chef. And this is making a Hollandaise sauce. It's a delicious, lovely sauce. This serves beautifully with fish, white fish, and chicken. If you've got chicken, especially boiled chicken, with a Hollandaise, absolutely lovely. So this is one of our sauces that we're creating today. And you see it starts to thicken slightly. And you want to get it quite thick because we're going to thin it down with our vinegary sauce to make the béarnaise.
There's a lot of wrist action. You have to keep going.
Yeah, it's a labor of love, one might say. But it's got to be done. There we are. Someone said to me the other day, I've been professionally cooking now for 32 years. They said, do you ever get bored? I know, you wouldn't think looking at me, would you? 32 years I've been cooking. So I started cooking when I was 16. And they said, oh, do you ever get bored of cooking? I've never, ever got bored. I'm always learning, always cooks. We learn all the time. So we go really quickly now because it's getting a bit boring. The thing is, you've got to do this slowly because you don't want it to split. You want to create a really good bound together sauce, and you want it quite thick. This is really high risk. Not many people would do this on stage, you know.
Right.
Because the chances are it's going to go wrong.
Well, it's not going to go wrong today. Because you have 32 years of experience.
Well, but you know, it's like racing drivers. Occasionally they drive into walls, don't they? You're like, oh, Lewis, what have you done? Well, very rarely does he drive into walls, but the other boys do. Okay, so now we've got a nice sauce. That's very hot. As that cools down, because the butter was hot, it's going to thicken up even more. So the blessing is, you see, you've got that lovely consistency. Okay, the last thing we do with that is we're going to season it. We can lose that one now. Actually, just leave it there. That's fine. That's good. Okay, so then I've got my sauce here. That's come down beautifully. This we're going to pass in a little bit later. And again, we finish that with a little butter. It's very naughty. And then, yeah, but you thought, is that a disaster? It's not, because I only need to make one plate of steak. You can leave that till the end, though.
But this is real life. This is what happens when you cook, right?
Stand away. Thank you very much. Right. There we are. Now we're going to add a little bit of the gastric to this. So start off with just 2 spoons, no more, because it's so strong. This is kidding me. This is so hot, this thing. There we are. Okay. And then I can place that to one side, somewhere a little bit cooler. And we're just going to let that sit for a little bit. And that's just about done. We're going to taste it. So you never want to use your fingers, especially when you've got an audience in front of you. You use a spoon. Needs one thing. The chef's favorite ingredient, salt. So a little bit of salt goes in there. We're looking good. Sauce number 1 is good. We're going to return my attention to this sauce now. So here, could I have another whisk, please, chef? Got another whisk? And then we're going to take a tiny bit of butter and a sieve and another saucepan, which I can actually dump that, which I don't need anymore. Oh, actually, I do need that. I'm going to pass this sauce into another. Do we have another pan? You'd be amazed how much stuff. This is classical cooking for you, though. I'm telling you, it is a labour of love.
So if you don't have 5 saucepans at home, how would you create this?
I do this in a more staged process.
Right.
So I just...
One by one.
I just go one by one and roll over, or 2 pans. In my house, I don't have that many pots and pans at home. But, you know, you could make your gravy and then you'd have a tidy up and then do a hollandaise.
Right.
Once you've done those 2 things, everything gets much easier and more straightforward. But classical sauces are, by their nature, quite complicated. So I need a sieve. Oh, thank you very much. Lovely. So now what we're going to do, we're going to pass this off. So remember we put the little fine shallots and garlic. The actual sauce at the end, you don't really want them in there. No, come back. There's a wonderful saying, come back. Come back. Thank you. Too many cooks spoil the broth. You heard that one? Yeah? Have you had that moment when you're in the kitchen and everyone's trying to muck in and you're like, just get out the kitchen? Yeah, we know that one. Okay. So we've got enough sauce for our steak. And this at the end, there's a thing, and it's called Monty au beurre in French, where you flick butter into your sauce at the end to give it a sheen, like a mirror finish. Wow. And that's called Monty au beurre. We're going to get to that right at the end. Moving on now, we're actually got our 2 sauces made. We've got our Bordelaise sauce, we've got our Hollandaise sauce, and now we're going to start making the other elements of our dish. I've got a hot pan on there. I've got some carrots, some lovely little carrots. They don't have to be like these little baby carrots. Any carrots will do. Make sure they're clean, they're washed, they're cut up. We're going to heat them up. Green beans I've already blanched, so I don't need to worry about them. And once you've blanched the beans, oh, I need another bowl. You never thought I'd get through so much stuff, did you, chef? I know. Once we've blanched our carrots, we can toss them over the beans and use that residual heat to warm them up. They don't have to be served piping hot. It's not necessary. And then we're going to grab a frying pan, which I think we have here. A big boy, lovely. And we're going to do these potatoes. So these are known in French cookery as pommes parmentières. And they're like little crispy fried potatoes. And we're going to cook them in vegetable oil, which I have somewhere or other. That's brandy.
And it's in the plastic.
Oh, there it is. Lovely. Thank you. We're going to cook these in vegetable oil. So you want quite a bit of oil in there. You don't want to be shy. And then when they're cooked, we reserve the oil and use it again and again and again, but I am going to just chuck these through a sieve. When you're doing this, obviously it's a lot of oil in the pan. You don't want to go wandering off, making phone calls, watching TV, talking to the neighbours, because you'll burn your house down. It's as simple as that. The biggest cause of fires in the UK at home in the old days used to be chip fan fires. You know, people make chips at home in a big pot of oil. The oil went over the stove, it burst into flames, and you burn your house down. Wow. So I'll try not to burn your stage down today. So, okay, we've got some oil on the go here. And then we've got our lovely potatoes. What we did with these yesterday, and classically parmentier again, I'm doing everything exactly by the book, should be little cubes, about the size of a large die. And then you put them into boiling water and boil them gently for 20 minutes. take them off, let them cool naturally, season them with salt, little olive oil, and leave them overnight in the fridge. And then the next day you fry them to get nice and crisp. Traditionally you deep fry them, but we don't have a deep fryer, so I'm just going to do them in a pan with some oil. And with this, you can tell when you get the right temperature. I want this to be 180 degrees. So the moment it starts to shimmer, the surface is shimmering, and just little wisp of smoke. If it starts to smoke too much, you know you're going into danger zone.
Right.
If it starts to really smoke, you're getting up to about 220 degrees. Right. After that, things get out of control. It could burst into flames. So you just want to keep that shimmer on the surface. Once you've got food in there, it will hold that residual heat. It won't allow it to explode, as it were. These are looking good. I'm going to use the same sieve because I appreciate I'm slightly getting out of control, and that's just got a little bit of jus in there. That's fine. These carrots are looking good. We're going to get a bowl, and I also need another frying pan. Here we go. Yeah, we'll pop that down there, chef. Another frying pan. I'm going to quickly, very quickly, there we go. How are we going on that? We got a flame there? No. Okay, give me a flame. I'm going to take that, pop that onto the middle one there. While that's going on, we're going to take an onion. So I'm enhancing everything with flavor. The vegetables are being enhanced with flavor. Take the onion through the middle. I just want nicely sliced onions. Whip out the core from the onion. And then going from the side through. And the reason I'm doing this last minute, and I can have a chat with you while I'm doing this, because I've done it so much, I'm not going to chop my fingers off. But the reason we're doing it last minute is because onions will brown if you prep them off too far in advance. So you just want to slice these last minute, a little bit of onion, and we're going to saute those off. Then the carrots are going to get tossed in the onions with the green beans, a little mustard, and some lemon juice. So again, adding flavor, always looking to add flavor. So we're going to do mustard beans, basically. This now is just about right. It's shimmering. And you can hear little pops going there. That's looking good. Potatoes go in. Lovely. And again, no need to shake this around like a wild person. You just very gently add them. Don't drop them from a height or you'll burn your fingers when the fat splashes. So you just add them into the pan. And we're going to get these nice and crisp. So it's about 2 minutes. And then we can start sort of moving the pan around. We just want little crispies.
How much olive oil did you put in that?
About a centimetre of vegetable oil. Not olive oil.
Vegetable oil.
The reason we're using vegetable oil, it gets much hotter.
Right.
No, olive oil does not get as hot.
To marinate it overnight.
Oh, no. So we boiled them in boiling water for 20 minutes.
Right.
Oh, about 2 tablespoons. Excuse me. You're right. 2 tablespoons of olive oil to suck the flavour in so you've got that taste of olive oil.
Right.
This pan, we're going really lightly, just a tiny, tiny bit of oil. Just a tiny bit there. And then in with our onions. So we don't need too much. We're just going to saute these off. We can try and get some colour on them. They're sort of what they call tobacco onions. So you just get a bit of colour in here. Carrots are good now. They can come off. You want them still to have a bit of crunch. You don't want them too soft, you know. Overcooked vegetables taste like the smell of farts, I always think. It's rather rude, I know, but they do. They're just not nice. We put a knob of butter in there to get a bit of colour. Going to put a little bit more olive oil in these guys. I'm not moving the pan around. I don't want to lose the heat from the pan. I want to keep that heat in there. And then ideally, if you've got, I've got those tongs somewhere, haven't I? Where have I got my, remember we had those tongs? Tongs. Yeah, there we go, brilliant. I feel like a surgeon up here with all my assistants. So there we go, look. Getting these nicely done. Just soften though, you don't want to burn them, you don't want too much colour. At this point, I could virtually bring them off. I'm going to take that heat down there. So I can pull that to the side. There we are, lovely. And that's good enough. That's nice now. Into that, I'm going to add my carrots, my beans. So this, of course, will bring the temperature down, which is all looking good. And then we're going to season that, nicely season it. These guys I can turn now. They should just start to be golden brown in colour. A little bit brown frying away. Is that on full whack? No. Right, I'm going to turn the temperature up here. So we just move them around a bit, nice and gently, just flip them around. Now I've brought the temperature up, so they're going to get really crispy. but fluffy on the inside. That's what you want with a good, like a really good potato chip. You want it really crunchy on the outside, really fluffy in the center, and it's all looking good. Okay, the next thing we're going to do now, and Chef can help me with this. I just need a good tablespoon of Dijon mustard in a bowl, and that's all I need, and probably a tablespoon here of that, a heaped tablespoon, and then 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. Okay, so these guys are coming along. I'll put that over there. Now you're going to see, I am actually going to start recycling pans now.
Okay, great.
Yeah, you worry about this, don't you? You're familiar with washing up, I reckon.
Yeah,
okay.
I don't like to wash up. Yeah.
So look, giving these vegetables. So we added another element of flavor. Now off the heat, the pan's still residually hot. Garlic, as I mentioned before, cooks very, very quickly, especially when it's this fine. So I want some garlic. This is a French dish. Garlic is very much celebrated in France. The Queen of England won't eat garlic. Did you know that?
No? Why?
Won't eat garlic. She likes plain food.
Oh.
She likes simple, plain food.
Interesting.
Nothing continental.
Okay.
She won't eat chili, garlic, onions.
Wow.
She likes boiled vegetables, boiled potatoes, and grilled meat.
Maybe that's why she lives for so
That's
long.
it. I know. There's something to be said for that, though, isn't there? That family, they just go on forever and ever and ever. Don't they? They just keep going. I think they get a blood transfusion every week of the blood of a 6-year-old or something. Keeps them going. I don't. They just keep going, though, don't they? I mean, bless her. She's great. But okay, here we go. So now we've got these lovely vegetables. You see, with those little softened onions, little bit of garlic. Finally, very important, we're going to use some ground pepper. Little ground pepper in there. So you've got lots of flavor, but at the same time, you've got the crunch of the vegetables and the goodness still in there.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're looking good. So we bring them through, and you think, oh, you finished now. They look like nice vegetables. I haven't. We've got mustard in here. Let's take my whisk. We've got a little bit of olive oil. I'm going to add a tad more, just a tiny bit more olive oil. And then, so when you eat this, you don't need, now we're on to 3 sauces with 1 dish. I know that, because this really is a sauce, isn't it? It's called Dijonnaise. And so in our vegetables, go into our Dijonnaise, and then Chef can give that a really nice mix with a spoon, just so it all lightly coats, and it's served perfectly. Then, now we've got our pan, we're going to use this again to cook the steak. So we are progressively getting there. We've got our béarnaise sauce, we've got our gravy here. This handle is going to be so scarily hot. I'm going to move it to one side because I know in that moment it could be very dangerous. And always keep your pan handles away from the outside. You don't want to harm anyone with that. Now we're getting a nice crispiness on our potatoes. They're looking good. At this point now, I'm going to slow this down. So you're always, again, when you're cooking, you're using your stove. You're using your stove to control the heat, control what's going on.
Right.
A bit like driving a car. You don't go flat out all the time. Well,
Right.
well, I wasn't going to say some people in Lagos do, but they don't really because you've got traffic jams most of the time. But
so you have to slow down.
it's the same working with your stove. You use the temperature to create what you're trying to get, you know. And that's important when you cook. So you just want a nice sort of golden brown, even colour all the way around. And then we've got another element. This oil is extremely hot at the moment, so I just want to slow it down. But to get potatoes super, super crunchy, we've got some semolina, which is here.
Which we're all very excited about.
The semolina.
Yeah.
So you toss the potatoes in the semolina,
Right.
and they get this little
Crunch.
real crunch to it. But that wouldn't be enough. So, look, 2 options. Option A is paprika,
Okay.
which you use in Nigerian cooking, paprika, a little bit.
A little bit.
A bit
Not
shy,
really.
isn't it?
Not really.
How
Not
about
really.
ground chili?
Yeah.
Powdered chilies,
Yes.
proper chili. Right, so you want to make these spicy, we could go with ground chili. Really nice and spicy. So the reason I'm just waiting here is I know that oil is very, very hot. And if I put this semolina in now, it's gonna burn very quickly. So we're just gonna slow this down a little bit. By doing this, each time I flick this pan, I'm losing 10 degrees. You're taking the temperature out. But do be careful if you're doing it at home. You don't want to splash if you've got little kids around and stuff. Obviously, this oil is ferociously hot. We've got these lovely crunchy potatoes. They're good. Okay, now I'm going to really slow this down. I'm going to whip that off. So get rid of the excess oil. Don't need that anymore. These are looking good. And into this now, it's a hot pan. we're going in with semolina into our pan.
Wow.
And then we're going to go in with some mildly spicy paprika, guys. And you're thinking, but that's raw semolina. But you've got to remember, this pan is still very hot. So we're tossing them in these spices. And then ideally, when chef is going to bring me back a clean sieve, I'm just going to bash them through the sieve last minute to get rid of all the excess. But you've got a lovely crunch.
Looks amazing.
And this is just stuck now to these potatoes. And it gives us a real contrast of flavor with a paprika or chili. So now we're moving on to our lovely steak. You see, it's the last thing you worry about. I've also here, and I don't know if you guys do this, but inside of these bones, you've got this wonderful marrow, the bone marrow from the steak. And I just wanted to highlight this because even just buying these bones, you can roast these off for an hour, scoop out the marrows, and they're just delicious. On a piece of grilled meat, eating these marrows is so good, so delicious. We're not doing that today, but I just wanted to explain that. So then we look at our fillet of beef. You've got different parts. You've got the tail, which is here. You cut the tail off. You don't really want the tail, but you can use that to make steak sandwiches. You go to nice hotels, they offer steak sandwiches, always from the tail. Then they cut them into little medallions, put them between two pieces of cling film, bang them out flat, quickly grill them, and have them in a nice steak sandwich. So they're perfect. So that's generally what you use the tail for. The top end is known as the Chateaubrian, this piece here. And this is perfect. The best thing to do with this is you tie it with string. You can either have it as two steaks, or you tie it as string, a little piece of string around it, seal it in a pan so it's all coloured, season it, roast it for 30 minutes, let it rest for 10 minutes. Perfect for lovers, this one, because it serves two.
Oh,
so your Chateaubrian.
wonderful.
And then you've got here what's called the tournedos, the central part of the steak. There's a very, very famous dish called tournedos Rossini, which was made for the opera singer Rossini, created in northern Italy. And they took a piece of steak and they'd cook it, serve it with a sauce made with Madeira, on a piece of fried bread with a slice of foie gras and a slice of truffle. Very naughty. No one really does it anymore, but it was rather special. This steak, I'm going to cook it as a nice piece of steak. And I'll cook two because I'm hungry, and there's a lot of you in here, so if I could, we'd all try in. But look, here's nice two pieces of steak. I'm cutting about a 6-ounce steak. If you wanted it bigger, you could go a bit further. So you're always looking about 4 of my fingers would make an 8-ounce steak. Let's say around 200 grams. And then you've got a nice piece of fillet. The wonderful thing about fillet steak, yes, it's expensive, but it's virtually impossible for it not to be tough.
Right.
Do you know why the fillet of beef is so tender?
Nope.
Okay, so obviously all the different joints on a cow, or a bull, really, because it's bulls, really, most of the different things have a purpose. So the muscle groups, if you look at the forequarter, holds the weight of the beast. So, all the front of the cow is what holds the weight. Therefore, it's the most muscular, it's the most used part, and generally that's for stewing steaks. If you try and grill the shoulders or the neck, you can't. It's like eating a rubber tire. And then you've got the central part, which are all the cooked bits. The only thing the fillet does in a cow is pulls the hindquarter towards the forequarter. So that's all it does. That's the only thing it does. So I'll leave your imagination to understand that. But what I can say is if you decide to eat a breeding bull, the fillet of beef is about that big and is as tough as a tire.
Wow.
So that's what the fillet does inside the body. Humans have them as well, but I won't go there. Right, a little bit of olive oil in the pan. We are going to cook this in olive oil. I don't need it to get this ferociously hot, but I want it hot. You could use vegetable oil. I'm going to use olive oil. And the other ingredient I'm going to do is I'm going to flick butter into that at the end, just to get a little what's called a beurnoise, a nutty flavour on the beef. We're very nearly there. Our potatoes are done. Our vegetables are done. Our beef is going to be cooked. Our Hollandaise sauce is done and looking good. And this now is starting to thicken as it cools down. We've got our little red wine sauce here, which I'm just going to thicken right at the end, and be careful because that handle's hot, but I'm going to thicken that right at the end with my little whisk. I've already dropped it once. That's there for my spuds, beautiful. So these can come off. This is still hot, chef, watch out. But there we go. And then, guys, if you've got a large plate, I'm going to serve this up somewhere. And the one thing, again, when you're cooking, a serving plate, please, chef. to finish it. Yeah? Am I going to do that? I'm going to finish it on a plate. The one thing I didn't ask for, actually, and I only realised that about 3 minutes before coming out here, but and also how you plate food, how you make something look attractive on a plate. Have you got a bigger one? Or is that as big as it gets? That one, there we go. Perfect. Lovely. That's wonderful. Thank you. So we've got a nice plate there. How you place food and when you get to that place of finishing things off, you want to make sure that everything is clear. So you've got a surface that you're working to, that you really do work to clear away, and especially do this at home or you get into a right muddle. So we've got all of our elements here. We've got our béarnaise sauce, we've got our vegetables. I need the best spoons to use to serve food are these. So I want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these, please, chef. Ready here. And you get yourself, in French cooking, it's called mise en place, put in place. So you've got everything you need in place. Get rid of any excess oil here. And then the last thing we're going to do is cook our steak. Everything else is ready. It's all looking good. So I'm going to cook 3 of these steaks all at the same time.
How do you recommend you cook the steak? Because in Nigeria, we like things well done, which maybe in France is not so approved. We don't like blood, right?
No. I mean, look, you can either kindly and firmly, if someone said, I want something well done, and if someone said to me, I want something well done, what do you suggest? I'd say an Uber, but I don't know, I'm joking. Look, I get cooking meat well done if you're in a very hot climate, because it's a kind of safety thing. In colder climates, northern France, the UK, you try and, I mean, some people like their meat really, really rare. I don't. I like it cooked.
Right.
So it's just pink. But the thing is, what happens is when it's well done, you tend to deny yourself the texture.
Right.
So you might as well have braising steak or some other different style of cooking.
Right.
So you've got more texture, more flavor. And that's how it works, because the cheaper cuts always contain more flavor, a lot more flavor. But you've got to know how to cook them. Something like this is so simple. You seal it on both sides, then you let it rest for a little bit. It's important to let it rest. But I'm not a fan of eating really rare meat. Some people love it. I mean, in France, they do steak tartare. Of course, it's raw.
Right.
Chopped raw with shallots and seasoning and an egg yolk on the top, which is raw. And they tuck into that. I'm not too sure about that myself. But then again, if you give me a beef carpaccio in Italy, that's raw. And I quite like thinly sliced raw beef. This guy, look, I always say the customer is always right. So whatever anyone asks for, you do it. That's like, you're a professional, that's your job, right? So you just do it. What we do here is we don't work the meat too quickly. I want to get color on this. And again, it's always when people are cooking meat, they start flipping it and playing around with it. You don't want to do that. You just want to hang in there. We're on a high flame now. I'm going to bring the flame down a little bit. And we're looking for color. So we've got a nice bit of color on the beef. And then by lowering the flame, I'm going to let the meat cook through steadily. And you see, we've got the lovely color on that. I always season right at the end with beef, because if I put salt on early, it draws out all the moisture. So you want that right at the end. This board can go now, guys. We're done with that one. Finally, we're going to do that thing where we call beurre montier. So we put our pan on the heat. I've got a little whisk. Vegetables and meat you do on the day, in my opinion. If you're making something like that, that's what you'd really focus on. These other elements you could do in advance. This is how you do it. You'd have everything, what they call en place, in place, and then you're ready to go. It's all good.
I just want to ask, what dish do you serve this with?
What do you serve it with? Yes. You serve it just like this.
With steak.
So if you imagine, there's a style in France, the UK, Europe, it's called La Russe cooking. So everything is plated and finished. So with La Russe cooking, you don't have to add anything else. You get a plate of food, you're presented with that, and then you eat it. And then if you want some more, you go again. But you don't need to add any elements to this. Maybe the potatoes you could serve on the side, the little crunchy potatoes that we've got here. So you just pop them on the side. But I'm gonna, for this dish, just place them on the plate. Very straightforward. Mustard beans, then we've got our beef, our sauces, and it's quite rich. The thing about this, it doesn't look like an awful lot on the plate, but because the element and the nature of the dish, everything's quite rich. So you'd be hard pushed to eat more than one and a bit of these, honestly. You know, that's the nature of it. But then you'd have a starter beforehand. So you might have something really nice first as a 3-course meal. And then, of course, you've got pudding. So, you know, you don't want to go too mad on the main course because then you can't have your pudding. Yeah. I like puddings as well, so, you know.
Next question.
Yeah, firstly, I'll say well done. Then secondly, what if you don't have much pans now? Is there any other way you can go about it?
But if you imagined I've done this whole thing in like just under an hour from start to finish, I wouldn't expect anyone to really do that. So what I'd suggest is I would make like beef stock and beef gravy. And I would need 2 things. I need an oven tray and 1 pan. Then that would be done. Then I'd make hollandaise. So I'd make my hollandaise sauce. I need a bowl and a pot. I need eggs, I need butter. I've got my hollandaise, right? Once I've got my hollandaise, I've got my hollandaise. Then I do some washing up. Then you boil your vegetables. You can blanch your potatoes. You can use the same pot over and over again with the beans, the carrots, the potatoes. Then you've got a frying pan to fry your potatoes. Finish the vegetables in a bowl with woo. So as I say, at home, I only have 3 pots in my house that I use. I've got loads of pots. I don't use them. I've got one big round one with 2 handles on it. I've got a frying pan and I've got a saucepan. And that's it. And I just run over to the sink and then again, because in a restaurant, you have 2 people. In my restaurant, 3 people doing the washing up, right? But it doesn't matter. You got hundreds of pots and pans. But at home, of course, we don't have those facilities.
Exactly.
And so you keep it simple.
Right. Okay, one last question, and then we'll talk to the chef quickly about something exciting.
I didn't see you using seasoning cubes. Is it that you don't use it?
Okay, so she didn't see you using seasoning cubes, which is big in Nigeria, but as a chef, yeah.
Seasoning cubes are really helpful to get instant flavor and taste. But the process of making a stock for 5 hours is kind of, what you're doing is dialing out the necessity of a seasoning cube because you're doing all the work, right? So if you imagine roasting those beef bones and all that flavor and all those vegetables with the tomato puree, the fresh thyme, the red wine, a 5-hour cook. You want to taste this sauce. It's so rich and it's got so much flavor. And then again with the hollandaise, you saw the reduction of the wine, the reduction of the vinegar, the adding of the tarragon. I just tasted that. I mean, it is delicious, honestly. It's really properly delicious. So you don't need to add those elements. And also a dish like this, the only thing I could put a seasoning cube in is this sauce, which is a meat-based sauce. A gravy, really, is what it is. And doesn't need it. It's got a kick to it, yeah.
Okay, you've heard it here. You don't need seasoning cubes in everything. Thank you so much, Chef. I want to ask you before we leave today about, you said you promised you were going to give us some tea on your new business venture. So can you share?
Yeah. So I've, for the last 20 years, been involved with a seafood business, and it's really successful. It's quite premium. It's what I describe as premium casual. It's the sort of thing that I would like to say Americans do best, but then you'll think of junk food, so I won't say that. But it's a premium casual restaurant. What I mean by that is it's a lot of fun. What we do is fun. When you walk in, the atmosphere is fun. The staff are very attentive. It's very impersonal, but the quality is very, very high. The standards of what we do, both from music, the wine, the feeling, the way we look after our customers is very, very high. And we've been doing the same thing for a very long time. And it's one of London. If you Google seafood restaurant London, it comes up as number 1, right? So then I thought I was given an opportunity to open a new business. And we're opening a hotel. So those of you who are coming to London at any point, hopefully in the next 20 years, as long as I'm still on the planet, It's called the Broadwick Hotel.
Okay.
It's we bought an office block in central Soho in London. We pulled it down. We went down 35 meters into the ground.
Wow.
We've developed a completely bespoke building. It's a boutique hotel, so it's only 47 bedrooms. And then it has a terrace on the 7th floor that overlooks London with a bar, live music entertainment. I've booked Shaka Khan.
Wow.
I've booked some big acts, actually. Grace Jones, Shaka Khan. We're trying to get Lady Gaga in there. But we won't advertise the nights they come because it's not a paying venue. It's just, it's a premium venue.
Right.
And then on the 8th floor, we've got a private dining room, again, that looks all across London. It's an amazing venue. Then on the ground floor is the thing that I'm most passionate about. So I'm opening a Sicilian-styled restaurant.
Okay.
And the thing about me that I like, as you can tell by my trousers, is Sicily is a very colourful, vibrant, collective, accepting island. It's quite unique. Its history is incredible. It was the only place, let's say, in Europe 300 years ago that accepted Muslims, Christians, non-believers. It spoke 4 different languages without any form of persecution. It's always had this incredible history. It's got an amazing cuisine that is sort of a little bit of everything for everyone because you've got influences from Greek food, French food because it was occupied by the Normans, Arabic food, and Italian food. And it all comes together in one big pot. And I kind of like that. I think I love the design and the style. We've got a designer looking after it. It's a guy called Michael Kaczynski who did Annabelle's Club in London and very, very, very...
Premium.
To me, it's like a... Wow, it really is. It's a love-hate relationship with his design, but... So that will be opening. This has taken us 5 years now, obviously because of the lockdowns and all the other stuff. So that opens at the end of this year, November. And also always pushing on with the restaurant because everyone assumes you can open a restaurant, put people in there, set it up and walk away. And it doesn't work like that. Any good business, and this is the only advice I have, and I've been doing it for 26 years, you've got to be there. You have got to be there and you've got to really care about it and you've got to nurture it. And everyone that works for you has got to know how much you care about it because that's the single thing that drives it all the time. All of us, in life, you try and make things easier. We can't help it. That's human nature. Make it easier, make it easier. But easier is never better. And it's only the one at the top that's like, no, I want it done like this or this. And you can see today, this is a relatively simple thing on the plate. But the detail you go through to get to that, but ideally when you put that on your palate and you eat it, not only do you enjoy it, you remember it. So if I was opening a steak restaurant and that was on the menu, what you hope is that if you guys came to that restaurant and you ate that dish, about a week later you'd be going, I want that again. And that's how you build a business. I mean, that's it.
Thank you so much, Chef, for a very memorable masterclass.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, by the way. Wonderful audience. Thank you. And it's been a real pleasure to come out here and do this. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. The first GT Food and Drink for you. How are you feeling?
Yeah, that was great. It's always nerve-wracking being the first one up because you've got no point of reference for anyone beforehand. But it was good. It was good. There was a lot going on.
Yes.
You're always looking around and having a chat at the same time and made it happen, but it all worked. Yeah.
And I was surprised you made 2 dishes, well, 2 sauces.
Yeah.
Potatoes,
3.
steak, 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot in 60 minutes.
There were 6 elements to that.
Right.
I was kind of pacing myself, and I know when you said you got about 5 minutes left, that was cool because I knew you knew we'd got there as well. So it's always a bit nerve-wracking. There's certain things that I did today that a lot of people would avoid doing in front of an audience, because often it's the times. Those moments where things like Hollandaise Sauce will go horribly wrong. There's no bringing it back. There's nothing you can do. So that was the only nerve-wracking moment was looking at that bowl thinking, please don't split. But apart from that, it was fine. It was good.
Oh, wonderful. And being your first time in Nigeria and this festival, what are your thoughts?
Well, it's just amazing. It's really hard to say, what you imagine somewhere's going to be before you go there because I didn't really have a clue. So the show's incredible. The vendors are all great. very friendly. You know, if you smile at someone, they smile back, or vice versa. Really positive vibe. Really well organized. And you couldn't really want for anything here. You know, if you like food and you like eating and you like having a drink, it's all going on. It's all good.
Exactly.
It's all good, yeah.
Exactly. I think a lot of people, you know, were surprised at the level of steps that goes into a sauce.
Yeah.
And how would they, if they're trying to learn without going to school or training under a chef, is there a way?
You know, I mean, look, in the old days, it was always using cookbooks, but the problem with cookbooks is they don't give you method. They just give you, or technique. They just give you the text.
Right.
YouTube. It's as simple as that. If
Right.
you've got access to YouTube, you YouTube it. Because like anything, I find now if there's something I'm trying to fix or make or do, and I get stuck, you start referencing YouTube because there's going to be some expert out there that makes a little short film. At the end of it, you think, all right, I've got it. Yeah.
Right. And I think another point of reference will probably be this class, which will be on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think what I tried to demonstrate today is something that so few people do now, and it is the classics. And really, it's like how you make a good classical sauce.
Right.
How you make it taste nice, which is the bits that people lift out because they go, pour this in, pour that in, bring it to the boil, add that. And there were the things we were talking about, listening to the sound of things, crackling, getting the sweetness out of brandy, getting the sweetness out of wine.
Right.
You know, I didn't demonstrate from start to finish how making beef stock because you need 5-6 hours.
Right.
But, you know, that's a reference. You think, okay, so you roast bones. There's no cost in that, really. You can make a lovely stock. Or as one of the guys in the audience said, you know, you can buy a stock cube if you want to. You don't have to go the whole hog.
Right.
Hollandaise sauce, you know, it's a simple thing and it's a luxury thing. It's if you've got guests coming round.
Right.
And as I said, you can have it with, you know, poached meat, poached fish, or grilled meat. But Hollandaise or Béarnaise sauce, it's so delicious. It's so, I mean, it's one of the most popular things in the world is steak Béarnaise. And if you can make a proper one at home, well, there, you're a winner.
Thank you so much, Chef. It was a delight watching you cook.
Lovely.
I hope you have a great time in Nigeria.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Thank you.